Hey there, welcome to Takeaway with Sam Oches, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I am Sam Oches, editor-in-chief here at NRN, and this is the show where I give you an all-access pass to the restaurant industry's most influential decision makers. This week, I'm talking with Carl Comeaux, the CEO of Crust Pizza Company. It's a 30-unit pizza franchise based outside of Houston, Texas. Carl has been an entrepreneur since he was a teenager, and he was part of the team who co-founded Main Squeeze Juice Company back in 2017. After exiting that business, Carl and his business partner, Nick Fontenot, fell in love with Crust, and they initially franchised the concept to bring it back to their home in Lake Charles, Louisiana, before eventually teaming up as partners in the business. Now, as CEO, Carl is tasked with scaling a pizza brand that serves Chicago-style thin-crust pizza with a hybrid service model that thrives both as a dine-in and to-go business. He joined the podcast to talk about how his knack for entrepreneurialism has given him a unique viewpoint as CEO of the business, and how the partners are creatively positioning Crust as they prepare to scale it across the Southeast. In this interview, you will learn more about why Scalable requires simple, why pizza doesn't have to be dine-in or off-premises exclusive, and why developing your own proprietary tech is a value add for your entire system. Jumping now into my interview with Crust Pizza Company's Carl Comeaux. Also, don't forget to stick around after the interview as I will share my 5 takeaways from this discussion, actionable insights that you can take with you on the go. Okay, I'm sitting down with Carl Comeaux, CEO of Crust Pizza Company. Carl, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sam.
So, Carl, this is a new brand for me. It's a new discovery. You guys are a concept out of Texas and Louisiana. I am a Midwest boy. I get around the country, but still, I was pleasantly surprised to learn about Crust and dig into the story here, and we're going to get into it. But tell me just real quick, 30 seconds, what's this concept all about?
Yeah, Crust is Chicago-style thin crust. We make our dough fresh every day. All our cheese come in big blocks. We actually have our own proprietary cheese now. We just ended up getting that about a year ago because we surpassed 750,000 pounds of mozzarella cheese, which is a big deal. And I'm telling you, out of all the cheeses I've tried them all at the Pizza Expo, we have the best cheese, which is a big deal. And then as far as we don't only have pizza, we have pastas, salads. All our produce is also fresh. And so if it's on your pizza or your pasta or your salad, it's fresh. And so we definitely, we're known for gourmet pizzas, and then the ambiance of our restaurants are beautiful. It's definitely not the hole in the wall pizza joint that you would experience. Our tones are grays, and we have the Chicago style brick. We have the open ceilings with the exposed ductwork. And so it's a warm, cozy environment. We always attach a patio to it with a fence, so that way the kids could play while the parents catch up. So our concept's really, you could bring your wife on a date night, or you could bring your kids after a ball game. It really serves both. We dine in is usually how a customer would discover us, because we're dine in, but as the store evolves and matures over the years, the business becomes 50-50 dine in to go pick up. And so anyway, I know I went over 30 seconds, but
it's all right. I don't have a timer. It's okay. So full service, is it a table service concept?
So it's limited service. So you order at the counter, but we're not hollering your name. We give you a table tent. And so you go get your own drink, and then you take a seat, and then we will bring you your food. And then when you leave, we will bus your table for you. So it's not full service, but it's not fast casual. It's in the middle. And then we're serving, we're giving you real plates to eat on and real silverware. And so I like the space we're in. It's in the middle.
Sure. So kind of one of those hybrid concepts. I see.
It's a hybrid concept.
So it's been around since 2011, now about 30-ish location. Is it mostly franchised?
Yeah. So we have, out of the 30, 7 of them are corporate stores, and the rest are franchised, which most of those franchises have come on in the last 3.5 years.
Got it. Okay, so the question that I'm sure you get all the time, Chicago-style thin crust? What?
Yeah. So cut in squares. And so everybody thinks of deep dish, right? When you
Yeah.
think of Chicago, but Chicago was first known for the thin crust tavern style cut pizza. And
Sure.
it's funny because I went to Chicago a couple of years ago for the first time, and I was talking to the locals, and they said, "Yeah, we don't eat deep dish here. We just eat thin crust tavern style pizza." So I thought that was interesting to hear that it's definitely a touristy thing, deep dish pizza for Chicago.
At the risk of drawing the ire of my Chicago listeners, I feel like Chicago deep dish style pizza, it's kind of like Skyline chili out of Cincinnati. No knock to my friends who are into Skyline or Gold Star chili, but Cincinnati style chili is really niche. It has a really small group of fans, and they are primarily in the Cincinnati area. I think that's the same thing with Chicago deep dish. And you have some phenomenal brands like Giordano's and Lou Malnati's doing deep dish, and that's great. But as for like what can you scale around the country, it seems like thin crust is a better bet.
Yeah, you don't feel heavy when you leave, right? It's thin. And so you definitely you don't feel like you have to loosen the belt as much.
Yeah, exactly. Not lasagna. We want pizza. So, Carl, you're a CEO. Tell me how you got into this company. How did you discover it? How did you become CEO?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually scaling another concept called Main Squeeze Juice Company. My business partner Nick and we founded that company in 2015, and I had moved to the Woodlands where Crust started, and ended up, falling. I was a customer at first, fell in love with the concept, and at that time they only had 3 locations. I ended up meeting Mark and Clint, the founders of Crust, and then we became friends. And they wanted to scale, but they weren't sure how. They knew how to do one at a time. And so with Main Squeeze, we actually to backtrack a little bit. My business partner and I did that for his sister because his sister ended up. She was a yoga instructor. She got kicked out of her space, and he came to me because I have a background in fitness. That was my first career in love. And he said, "Hey, Carl, my sister got kicked out of her yoga space. I would love to start a yoga studio for her." And I said, "Brother Nick, yoga people are too much about the universe, not about making money. I'm not interested." And so he came to me with a juice and smoothie concept called Olive Juice Bar. And come to find out, the P&L looked really good. And I said, "You know what? We don't have anything like this in Lake Charles. We can do the juice and smoothie bar in the front. We'll do the yoga in the back. We're going to do one store. It's going to satisfy his sister. Might make a little. I thought we would do 30,000 a month. Build up to maybe 50. Well, we ended up opening up, Sam, and we did 110,000 the first month. It absolutely,
Wow.
like we were running out of juice every day by 1 o'clock. It was insane. Like the community definitely fell in love with the brand. And so 18 months later, we had close to 50 units sold. And it was just wild because that was our second run at franchising. And so during this time, we're scaling Main Squeeze. I end up becoming a customer of Crust, meet the founders, and then it was time for me to move back to Louisiana, to Lake Charles, which is where I'm at now. And I told the founders of Crust, said, "Hey, the only thing I'm gonna miss about the Woodlands is Crust Pizza. I would let's partner up and open up one in Lake Charles." And they were like, I don't know if you know the Woodlands demographic, but it's incredible. Like it's the best demographic you could ever imagine. Like if you could find the Woodlands demographics in different states, like that's where you want to put your restaurants. And so they told me no. So Nick and I, doing what we do best, we knew that most likely we were going to sell Main Squeeze probably within the next year. And so I told Nick, I said, "Hey, look, let's start a pizza concept. I'm gonna miss Crust. Let's create one. It's not gonna be identical to Crust, but it's definitely gonna have some vibes." And so we got busy 9 months later and talked to the Crust Clint Mark, and we're fixing to sign a lease for Rush Pizza. $150,000 later, a bunch of research and development. We're fixing to sign a lease, and we're signing Friday. I get a call from Clint on Wednesday, 2 days before. Says, "Hey, congratulations! Saw you guys sold out of Main Squeeze. So what are y'all doing now?" I said, "Well, it's funny, you called me, 2 days before I'm fixing to sign a lease for Rush Pizza." And he said, "Man," I talked to Mark. We changed our mind. We want you guys to help us scale Crust. And I'm like, wow. And I knew Crust was special. I mean, it had a few stores, and they were doing very well. And then the product is fantastic. The ambiance is great. So I called Nick and I said, hey, man, I said, you won't believe this. Clint just called me from Crust. And Nick said, there's no way that the landlord's going to go for this, because Chipotle was looking at this spot too. And so we talked the landlord into going to Houston, which is about 2.5 hours from Lake Charles, and said, hey, we would like to consider this deal. We're not sure if it's going to happen, but we would like to consider it. So he gave us 8 weeks. He tried the pizza, fell in love with it, and he gave us 8 weeks. But at the time, the brand wasn't scalable. It had 60 plus menu items. It had 5 different size pizzas. I knew that if we were going to scale this, the menu had to be much smaller. So I looked at all 3, 4 locations at the time and saw that I looked at the data, and it was the same top pizzas, same top pastas, salads, etc. So we condensed the menu from 60 plus items down to 30. Another thing, we're all equal partners. We're all actively involved. And so anyway, we're not sitting in the skyscraper collecting the check. We're working this. We're not private equity backed. We're bootstrapping it, but we're at 30. We're at a good place. Like we're really we're hiring the right people, and it's going well. And so anyway, so that's so we ended up opening up Lake Charles, and Lake Charles became the number 1 location in all categories. Man,
wow,
oh, Lake Charles with the terrible.
You knew it could happen.
Yeah, I knew it was going to happen. I was like, look, we started fixing my phone here. We started a fitness concept here, Premiere. We started, and all the concepts did really well. Main Squeeze. I said, I'm telling you, like, it's going to do good. And sure enough, actually, we had to expand. We went from 2,800 square feet to 4,000 because we were running out of seats. So we needed more people.
If you're doing a lot of dine-in, and do you have alcohol?
Yeah. So we have beer and wine.
Okay.
So yeah, that makes up some of our sales, but no, it's a cool story.
Yeah. Well, because I imagine, again, to your point about, having to expand, when I'm thinking, pizza, not to, no pun intended, but it kind of fits into a certain box, right? Like when you think of, you have your QSR delivery giants, you have your, now smaller, more niche, fast casual player. And then you have your full service, full bar, sit down and stay a while. And so it feels like you guys cross over all of those, and it's a little bit less easy to put into a box. So I ask this because I'm wondering, like, for the sake of scaling, you talk about like cutting down on the menu. Did you have an image of what this could be when you scaled it? Do you have a company that you were comparing it to, or did you know this is different, so that's the white space we're chasing?
That's it. It's different. It's unique. Like, whenever I was living in the Woodlands, we would do takeout pizza, and then we would, let's say Domino's or Pizza Hut, and then our dine-in pizza place was Crust. But then what happened was, as a customer, it went from not only being my dine-in pizza, but also my pickup pizza. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's interesting. That's different. Because a lot of full service restaurant, full service pizza, like you're probably not picking that up. It's you're sitting, you're dining in. And so I definitely, and looking at the data of these stores that have been opened up since 2011, it was crazy to me that it was 60% dine in, 40% to go pick up. And then after COVID, during COVID, that flipped. It went 40 dine in, 60% to go. And then now we're hovering that 50-50 number. And so we do a ton of takeout business now. Whenever a store opens, it's heavy dine-in, but then over time it balances out.
Almost feels like an unfair advantage here because you can play in both sandboxes. I mean, pizza delivery, everybody understands that. You guys are available for delivery. I assume are you doing the third parties and stuff?
Yeah, we're doing third party delivery through DoorDash.
So you're doing all of that. So you've got that muscle built that you can do the delivery. But for those who want to come have experience, they can come and have that experience dining in. So that seems like a real advantage. Do you have to communicate that to guests at all, or are they getting it right away once you open up?
They get it. And Sam, like whenever I was growing up, like to show my age in the 90s, my family would go eat out once a week. So my family, great cooks. And so we wouldn't eat out much. I mean, they would make everything homemade. But when we would go eat out, we would go to Pizza Hut. And there was a dine-in experience, the nostalgic, red cups and boots, and it was a place that we got to. It was like the local pizzeria, and it didn't feel like a franchise. It felt local, and that's where the family got together, and we would share a couple of pizzas together, and so for Crust, I wanted to be that local pizzeria, that neighborhood place where you could bring your family or friends over a couple couple pies, and it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. Like a family of five could come eat our fresh product for $35-$40, and get an appetizer with drinks. And so it's affordable, but it's great quality. And we're not going to skimp on that. I mean, cost of goods have gone up, but we worked some really good deals, like our cheese. When we went to our own proprietary cheese, we saved 50 cents per pound. That's
Wow.
a big number. I mean, we went from $3 to $2.50. That's big. And so then, of course, that just adds to your bottom line.
For sure. I'm so glad you brought up that Pizza Hut example. I imagine you and I are probably not so different in age. I also, growing up in the 90s, also went out with my family to Pizza Hut. And also it was, after Little League baseball games, after church, after, whatever event you have, you go to Pizza Hut and, book it. I mean, these are the things that are really deeply embedded in me. And that doesn't happen if it's not that, kind of important in-person experience. You don't get that if Pizza Hut's getting delivered to you all the time. And I think it's funny how many people I talk to who specifically call out Pizza Hut as that touch point, as being a place they went as a kid. Because who's talking about, no offense to my friends at Pizza Hut, but who's talking about Pizza Hut as the place they're taking their family right now?
They're not. Yeah.
And it's an emotional thing. And, not that this is all about me, but the other thing I did in college was I had a local pizza place where I'd go with my roommates, pizza and a pitcher of beer. And again, it's an emotional connection that I have to that. And it's an experience that I seek out now as an adult. It leads me to ask you about the emotion of Crust, because I imagine all of this sounds to me like you're trying to build something here that's more than just a craveable pizza. You're trying to build something that's building memories, building experiences, creating emotion, right?
Yeah. No, it's the ambiance, like I mentioned, with the grays and the bricks, and it's we play Jack Johnson radio, and so it's a cool vibe. It's we definitely are going after what Pizza Hut was back in the 90s, because it's great memories, and we want to recreate that for families today and friends. It's funny, every time I go to visit a restaurant, especially if it's at nighttime. So our business is probably 25% lunch, 75% dinner. I mean, it's heavy dinner.
Yeah.
And, we have the picnic tables outside, and it's just, you always see friends together with a couple pitchers of beer or a bottle of wine, laughing and with a couple pizzas, right? And so, yeah, definitely we're bringing that back.
I want to pause really quick on the proprietary cheese, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, wait a second, what? Tell me about the cheese saga that you went through, how you got to a place where you needed to develop a proprietary cheese. What was that whole process like?
Yeah, so we ended up, the cheese that we had was fantastic before our own cheese. But we were looking to switch food vendors. But our cheese was connected to the existing food vendor. And so we were like, okay, well, we need to find another cheese that's comparable to that one. And we tried, Sam. I mean, like I said, we went to Pizza Expo. We would literally go down every aisle, try every cheese. We were stuffed with cheese. And we could not find one. We could not find it. And so finally, we found the number one mozzarella manufacturer of cheese, of mozzarella cheese. And we contacted them, had a meeting with them, and they said, how much cheese are you going through? So we had to pull that data. And they're like, well, you qualify for having your own proprietary cheese. And I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, well, then let's go down that process. And so we did. And then come to find out, since, it's almost like we cut out the middleman, we were able to take that savings and just pass it down to the franchisees and our corporate stores. And I mean, when you think about that, I mean, we were at 750,000 pounds a year ago. I mean, we're probably well over that now. I mean, we had 11 openings, so I'm sure that we're probably closer to 900,000 pounds. And that's not cheddar. That's not smoked Maz. That's not Gouda. That's just mozzarella cheese.
Wow.
Yeah.
So first off, my new life goal is to qualify for my own proprietary cheese, because that sounds amazing. Somebody to tell you, hey, you qualify for your proprietary cheese. That's amazing. But second off, I mean, that's significant for a pizza company, like, to go through changing your product. Did that make you panic at all? This idea, like, oh my God, we got to change our cheese. Like, that's not insignificant for a pizza company.
No, quality is so important to us. Like, we're not going to sacrifice quality over price. We're not going to do it. And so when we finally found our own, we created our own cheese and it was better, we were relieved. We were like, oh, because the cheese we had, I'm telling you, was like the best we've ever had until we tried ours. And we did taste samplings, with the taste samplings we did with the manufacturer, and then how it melts, how it shreds. I mean, it was a lot that went into that.
I imagine. Yeah, you can't get that wrong. If you get that wrong, things are in trouble.
At the end of the day, pizza, you got to have the right dough, the right sauce, and the right cheese. Everything else is line up.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about you really quick, because you said you came from the fitness industry and then you moved to founding Main Squeeze. So you have this juice concept, you sell the juice concept, and you get into pizza. Tell me about some of the lessons you've pulled with you from the fitness industry, from the juice bar industry. How is that informing you as a CEO in the pizza industry?
Yeah, man, I learned a lot in the fitness industry. No one wants to exercise, so you have to talk them into it, right? And so I actually, coming from, like I mentioned earlier, a family of great cooks, like, I would rice and gravy, gumbo, jambalaya. I mean, as my childhood, from probably 8, 9 years old to 11, I gained a little weight, Sam. And so my dad was like, hey, do you want to join a gym? And I said, yeah, let's join it. And so I joined the gym and fell in love with working out and exercising, and then I started working at that gym at 14 years old, and then picked up an article about personal training and ended up becoming a trainer at 16.
Wow.
And I was making $2,500 to $3,000 a month cash money. I didn't know what taxes were. It was really cool. And so that was my first love, was just transforming other people's lives. And then I went to college at McNeese State and thought I wanted to be a doctor. So I started that route, and then I realized, you know what? I love what I do with preventing disease more than treating disease. And so I ended up getting a master's in exercise physiology. And I'll be honest, I did not want to go to college. My parents were like, you got to go to college. I'm like, okay, I'll go. But I finished college, undergrad and master's in 3.5 years.
Wow.
Both of them together.
Good for you.
So I was just ready to get out. So, I told my advisor, I said, let's max out the hours every semester. I'm ready to be done. It's funny that the day I graduated from a undergrad and my master's, the amount of money I made didn't change. I was making the same amount because I was training people as I was learning. And so then I realized that I could only make so much just by myself. And so I ended up building a team. And that's whenever I learned I was a terrible manager and had to learn manager skill. And so I got real deep into Tony Robbins' self-improvement. And so I did every conference. I walked the fire, the coals that is Unleashed Power Within conference. I did it like 3 or 4 times. Then I connected with Keith Cunningham, which he was the Rich Dad and the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. He's the one that was the mentor for Robert Kiyosaki. So I took every conference he put on in Austin, Texas, I went to. I was hungry to learn about business and I had a couple mentors. Being a personal trainer, usually some of your clients are business owners, and so I had a couple mentors that helped me along the way create my first business plan, performer, all those things. Tell me that, hey, Carl, eventually you're going to pay taxes. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is, but eventually I'll find out. And so anyway, I learned how to manage others, and I had a team of seven trainers underneath me. And then what I learned, Sam, was that I enjoyed the taking a trainer, making nothing to making $50,000 a year, more than I enjoyed transforming other people's lives. And that's whenever I realized that, you know what, I'm an entrepreneur and I love this. I've been self-employed since 16. So I had to learn from mentors like Tony Robbins, Keith Cunningham, and others, because I didn't have that experience. But from there, I ended up connecting with Nick, my business partner today, and he had started a cell phone repair concept called Fix My Phone. I had moved to Houston already, and he started that in Lake Charles, Great Lake Charles. And I said, dude, there's nobody doing this in Houston, nobody doing it. So we ended up opening up one in Houston. And then that's whenever I got introduced to franchising. I was like, we could franchise this. Went to a franchise conference. And then before we knew it, we had a couple of franchisees and we had 11 stores. And then that's whenever he hit me with, hey, my sister just got kicked out of her yoga studio. And then that whole story starts, right?
Yeah.
And anyway, and so, yeah, so Main Squeeze was definitely the first role I had in the restaurant industry, and I learned a ton. I mean, we built our own proprietary software too. So talking about proprietary, Nick has a technology background, and he started a couple tech companies and sold them, and so he has that muscle, which is fantastic. So when we were selling these units for Main Squeeze, that was a very attractive value add, was having the software, point of sale, customer facing, but also franchise development. It was all in house. It was all underneath one umbrella. And so for Crust, we weren't going to do that. We were going to just do the third party point of sale. We were going to build our own franchise development portal, and then we were going to tie into the point of sale our own app and different things to complement it. And then we hit a roadblock about 9 months ago. It was before that, but we started seeing signs from our point of sale company. I won't mention their name, that their open API wasn't as open as we needed it to be. And so we ended up making the decision, and it was a tough conversation with Nick, that, hey, it's time to build our own. And so we will be launching that next month, which is super exciting. Oh, wow. It's going to take about 3 to 6 months to launch all 30 locations, because we also have 12 more that will be opening up this year. And so, man, we're excited. We're excited because this could be a value add, just like we had with the juice concept. It's all going to be underneath one umbrella. We won't be standing in line with 100 other concepts waiting for things to be tweaked. And for the franchisees, that's powerful, man, where we can make decisions on the dime. Like, we don't have to wait, which we got spoiled to having our own system. Like, we didn't have to wait. If we wanted to make a change, we could. And so anyway.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you right, go find you a business partner who has a tech background, because so many restaurateurs out there wouldn't know the first thing for doing that. I imagine it gives you a lot of control, right? You guys have a lot of more control over what you're able to do with that.
Oh, I mean, and we could, a lot of third-party point of sales, it's cookie cutter. Let's be honest, right? It could only be so custom to your brand. When you have your own custom software, which I'll be honest, like at 30 locations, most restaurants won't have their own software for probably until they hit 150, 200 units to be able to afford it, right? But since we have that's his magic power, we're able to get it done quicker and at a better price. Sure. And so anyway, it's still expensive, but it's a huge value add for the franchisees and for us. I mean, we're going to own all the data. Right now, we don't. Like right now, every single restaurant is on its own menu, which is terrible. I can't tell you how many pepperoni pizzas we sold yesterday, which is a problem.
Wow. Yeah,
but that's all going to change once we have our own system. And the third party we have, they had an enterprise level where we could all have all have the same menu, but we tried it with 5 or 6 locations and it was a hot mess. And so we had to pivot from that and go back to just each store having its own menu, which means that every time we do a pizza of the month or we do a LTO, every location has to update their point of sale and their back end. So anyway, with this, it's all going to be streamlined. We won't have any of those issues. It's going to save the franchisees a ton of time and money. So we'll own all the data, which is powerful.
something I'm curious about, because I'm not a restaurant CEO, but obviously spent a good deal of time talking to him. But you and I were just at our Create event in Nashville. We call it for emerging restaurateurs, and of course, what we mean by that are smaller but growing chains. At 30 units, you guys are, I guess you could say, small in that, in comparison to some of the pizza giants. You're smaller, but obviously a clear growth trajectory. What I'm curious about is, for the size of Crust at about 30 locations, is it harder to get the attention of these vendors to do the things you need them to do with technology, or have you already crossed that hurdle? Do you have some heft you can throw around?
Yeah, definitely. We're still not at the size for them to say, okay, I'm gonna support you. Now, I feel like that's probably. I mean, we get support, but not at the level that we should, or at
Mhm.
the level that I would want to see. Of course, though, if we never owned a tech company before, then we probably wouldn't know, Sam. Right?
Right.
We'd probably think it's great, like it's fine. But whenever you own your own tech company and you know what kind of flexibility you could create, and where you could create modules that benefit the operation, it's you see all the gaps, probably more than someone that's never had that tech company before.
For sure. For sure. Okay, so Carl, something I'm sensing about you: you have been very good at building things. You are an entrepreneur. Clearly, you're obviously very hungry to learn and to grow. You built this career as a training as a fitness instructor. You built a brand in Main Squeeze. My question for you is, coming into a brand that was already built, that you came in then now with some partners who founded this thing. It's their baby, can become yours too, but like, tell me how you've adapted to that, where it's something that you're growing something else that somebody else built. How have you figured out that process?
Yeah, they're Mark and Clint are incredible partners. They know their strengths and they know their weaknesses, and so they knew that they needed to find a partner that has experience with scaling a brand, and that's what we did with Main Squeeze. And so kudos to them. Like, looking back, like, I hate to say it, but I feel like they made a good decision, because we went from a few locations to now 30, and went through the COVID, which was not easy, right? But we're still, I'll be honest, we're still building our foundation. Like, our foundation is not 100% built. We're still building that internal team that's going to take us from 30 locations to 100, right? Like, the team that we had that brought us from a few locations to 30, that was a different team than the team that we've hired in the last year. Like, the team that we hired in the last year were higher level executives that have been there, done that, understand franchising at a deeper level, and have skill level that none of the partners have. And so we recognize that our weaknesses, all four of us, and our strengths, and said, you know what, this is the gaps, and this is who we need to hire to fill them. So that way we could continue growing at the pace we want to grow. I mean, our vision is 250 stores in the next 9 years. And in order to achieve that, we need to get to 25 openings per year, which means that we have to sell about 40 to 45 territories annually. And so we've been selling on average 12 to 15. And that's all organic, Sam. We have not spent a dollar on development, on brokers or PPC or anything else. Now, in the last few months, we have taken on a PR company that is helping us with development, and it's been fantastic. So definitely excited for 2025. Our goal is to sell 40 units this year, and so we definitely it's going to be more than what we've done in the past. But we have a blueprint to achieve it. So.
That's awesome.
It's exciting.
All right, so tell me more about the growth strategy then for Crust, because two things here. First off is obviously the franchising aspect of it. I have to imagine there's a lot of franchisees out there looking for a pizza concept to fill out their portfolio, and you guys fit a very unique need, as we were talking about before, with your ability to do both delivery and dine in. But then there's the piece of this, which is real estate, and I wonder about, with real estate and you're growing, as you grow, you have all these developments that, you've got a pizza place locked down, got the exclusive on that development, whatever it might be. But But again, you guys have a very distinct offering here that you're not QSR, you're not fast casual, you're not traditional casual. So these two things, as you grow, how do you properly make sure you're fitting Crust into the proper franchise portfolios and real estate as the brand and the service model that you have?
Great question. So we have purposely sold in Texas and Louisiana only, so that way we could build that infrastructure in these two states. Our goal is to be a household name in the Southeast, so everything to Florida, to the Carolinas, across Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma. And so we definitely that's our focus. That's our area. I mean, I'm not saying we wouldn't sell to a multi-unit area developer in another state outside of Southeast. But it would take someone special that's taken a Sonic, let's just say 50 units, and developed them all, and looking for and sold it, and looking for another brand to do the same thing with. So we would be open to that. But the main investor we're looking for is either, of course, we're looking for the multi-unit operators, right? The operator that might be in San Antonio, Texas, and they have, let's say they have 5 or 6 restaurants of another brand, and they've already maximized their territories. They don't want to expand to new territories with it, and they're looking for another brand to sink their teeth into, to do the same thing they did with the first brand. And so we're looking for those players. But then also we love the corporate America individuals that are sick and tired of being in corporate America. They're probably making 150 to 250 a year, and they have the entrepreneur spirit, and they really want to do their own thing. They want to see what that freedom's like, even though it's busy. It's not as easy as you think, and we let them know that. We let them know. But what comes with that level of investor is that they've probably worked really hard in corporate America over the years to climb to that level of 200 to 250, and so now they're going to sink all that time and effort into their own baby, right? And it's worked out fantastic. Like, most of them have no experience in restaurants at all, so they learn restaurants for the first time through our training at Crust. And they're fantastic. I mean, we have some incredible owner operators that are scaling and opening up more locations, which is great. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to have 100 locations and 100 franchisees. We want franchisees that are going to open up more than one.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Carl, last question I wanted to make sure I ask you about is giving back, something very close to both of us. And I want to make sure we talk about that, because as you mentioned before we hit record, being able to partner with a philanthropic initiative, obviously the quote unquote right thing to do. And you and I have both had experiences where that's very close and personal to us. But as you pointed out before we hit record, we were talking, and you mentioned just how much that can be good for the business as well. And I want to make sure we talk about that. Tell me a little bit about Crust's work with St. Jude's.
Yeah. So that's one of our values, is commitment to giving back to the communities that we serve. And so on a local level, we've been doing that from 2011 to today. But this past year, we had the opportunity to partner with St. Jude and through a couple initiatives. So we did Roundup, we did a Pizza of the Month, and then some of the proceeds went to them. And then we did a Crust Cup with free Coke refills. And $5 for each cup that was sold went back to them. And this was an initiative that started back in January, and we're doing it for a complete year. So we're wrapping it up. We have 2 months left, and looks like we're projecting to hit $100,000 to give back to St. Jude, which gives me the chills thinking about it, because it's a small token, but in the grand scheme of things. But for me, it's personal. Like you mentioned, Sam, my son Reese ended up in cancer at 6 years old, and St. Jude was a godsend. I mean, it was amazing how they took our family in and just took care of us. And it was during COVID, and so it was a rough time in general, trying to scale a pizza concept at the same time your son's going through this heavy protocol of chemo. Uh, but man, walking those halls of St. Jude, it's special, man, and
Yeah.
it's definitely a place that you see the commercials all the time, and you're like, oh, like St. Jude, is that real? Like, is it? Oh, it's real, man. It's so real, and so anyway, it's a small token to be able to raise 100,000, but a big deal. And at the end of the day, like the one of my mentors, I would always say, the more you give, the more you receive. And it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, it seems small, but every dollar helps, as we know. And so awesome work, and please keep it up, because that's important work to be doing. Carl, so glad that we could connect, and I'm really glad to learn more about Crust, and very excited to see what comes of this brand. So thanks for taking some time today.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
That was my interview with Crust Pizza Company's Carl Comeaux. So what should you learn from this interview? Here are my 5 takeaways. My first takeaway is that scalable requires simple. When Carl became a partner in the Crust business, he looked at the menu and he saw 60 different menu items, 5 different sizes of pizza. It was complicated. It was good, but it was complicated. And complicated is the opposite of what you want when you're going to scale a business, and especially if you're going to franchise a business. You need something simple. You need something that you can very easily put into a playbook, hand to a franchisee, hand to an operator, and they can replicate very easily what you are doing. So Carl and the team cut back the menu to 30 menu items. They looked at all of their top sellers and they saw that, these 30 items are pretty standard top sellers across all of the locations. So let's just make this the menu. That's what they did. They were able to package everything up into a much more simplified, scalable model. And that afforded them the ability to quickly take off with their growth, which they've done over the past couple of years. My second takeaway is that pizza doesn't have to be dine-in or off-premises exclusive. If you look around the pizza industry, you see the Domino's of the world, the Papa John's of the world that are delivery only, and they're doing very well with that. Then you see some out there that are very focused on dine-in and having table service, casual dining, right? Like in Old Chicago or some of these other full-service brands. But what Crust is doing is somewhere in the middle, and they're thriving on that. Carl said that they are doing 50-50 business as far as delivery to go and dine in. And I think that's perfect for a pizza brand because you can thrive in both avenues. With the style of pizza that they have, that Chicago style thin crust, it delivers very, very well. And so a lot of people turn to Crust for delivery, but they've created this vibe in the restaurants with beer and wine that is a place you want to go sit and hang out. It's a casual vibe. And so you might want to go and sit inside the restaurant and have a meal with your family. This, I think, gives you 2 strengths, right? Why have one strength in delivery or one strength in dine-in when you can have both strengths? This hybrid service model that Crust has, where you order at a counter, you get a table tent, you go back to your table, having somewhere in the middle there allows them to be an efficient business, probably turn their tables very quickly. But again, if you want, you can sit and stay a while and enjoy the ambiance of a Crust. When I think about a pizza place, and I'm biased, I'm a big pizza fan. We talked about it in the interview. I have a lot of standards when it comes to the pizza places that I'm visiting. And of course, most Friday nights with my family, we have pizza night and we're getting delivery. My kids are just a wreck at the end of the week. They just need to eat at home. But those moments where I crave a pizza, a pitcher of beer, a relaxing setting, I want one of those places too. That place needs to be in my life as well. Why not be both? It sure sounds to me like Crust is going to serve both purposes. My third takeaway is that the Pizza Hut of yesteryear made an impression on younger consumers. This is a very specific takeaway, and let me explain here. I have had this conversation several times now, and I feel like 2 or 3 of them have been here on Takeaway, where somebody has hearkened back to being a child, growing up, going to Pizza Hut with their family, and that being a very distinct memory for them. This resonates with me because I too have that memory. I remember going to Pizza Hut after baseball games, after church. You're going there for organized functions. I remember participating in the Book It program. And I can still vividly remember what the inside of a Pizza Hut looks like from the early to mid 90s. And Carl shared that exact same memory. And I think there's something here, right? Which is
consider the fact that your younger consumers, this impression was made on them that a great place to go with a group and make memories and have fun is what Pizza Hut used to provide in the 90s, which is, more table service. They had those, that classic kind of Tiffany style lighting. It was sort of a dark sort of vibe inside of the Pizza Hut, that the big communal tables, at least at the one I used to go to. And that was a neighborhood pizza joint feeling. And listen, take Pizza Hut out of this, although credit to the old team at Pizza Hut who was responsible for that, because obviously you did a good job making that impression and creating those memories. But what's so fascinating is how that neighborhood pizza joint, that's what made the memories. Whatever pizza place it is, when you provide a restaurant where you can have lots of dine-in, where you can go sit and celebrate a birthday or go after church or do whatever it is with a group and make those memories, that develops a brand loyalty that people really look to when they're choosing the pizza restaurants that they want to do business with. So I mostly bring this up because I think there is a place in the market, the pizza market in particular, for these neighborhood pizza joints. And Crust is clearly filling that role. I spoke several months ago, you might remember, with the team at Pupatella out of DC. They are trying to fill that role. And I think that some of those characteristics of the restaurant that are so important to get at are, an environment where you want to sit and stay a while, great service and hospitality, of course, good food, but how do you create that vibe inside the restaurant where people might want to come and be a part of the community? There is real opportunity there. My fourth takeaway is that developing your own proprietary tech is a value add for your whole system. So Carl mentioned, his business partner, Nick, and is now the Crust Chief Technology Officer. Nick is a tech guy, and he was able to develop some proprietary tech at Main Squeeze. Now he's developed some proprietary tech at Crust that they're getting to roll out. And this is a real unfair advantage that Crust has. And I realize that not everybody has a business partner who has experience and expertise in technology, but there's real value, as Carl explained, to having their own POS, which is what they're about ready to roll out. When you have your own POS, of course, you don't have to, as Carl put it, wait in line for the vendor's attention to come and fix something. You just have so much more flexibility, control, insight into what's going on in your technology, in your POS. But as Carl pointed out, I think this is important. It's such a value add for your franchisees. When you can hand your franchisees, your operators, some proprietary tech that, again, they have more control over, they have more ability to engage with, interact with, and understand. And importantly, it can streamline what you're trying to accomplish for the brand through the POS. You can save money, save time, own your own data. All of those things, Carl said, are a value add. It's a value add to the company. It's a value add to the franchisees. If and when it makes sense for you to develop your own proprietary tech instead of partnering up, with a third party, consider doing that, because there's real value, as Carl explained, to having that ability. Yes, there should be probably some headaches along the way. Yes, it is expensive, but the ROI is there. The benefit is there, and clearly you'll find that by having that value add that you can give to your operators and have for your team as well. My fifth and final takeaway is that the more you give, the more you receive. Carl pointed this out before we hit record on the interview, and I wanted to make sure we brought it up in the interview, and I want to make sure I call this out here. Carl talked about Crust's relationship with St. Jude and how personal that is to him, because his son had cancer and was treated at St. Jude. And Crust has gone on to partner with St. Jude, and it's become an incredible relationship that they're able to share then with their customers and raise funds to donate to St. Jude. I've been vocal about this on LinkedIn, maybe referenced it on the podcast as well, but my own son is a survivor of childhood cancer. And so this need is very near and dear to me as well. Now, I've partnered with Alex's Lemonade Stand as a foundation that I'm very close with and have worked with in getting them involved with the restaurant industry. But the reason why I bring that up is because what I've seen firsthand with Alex's, what Carl has seen firsthand with St. Jude, is that this is not just a charity where you check a box and say, I'm going to donate money because I'm supposed to, because I want to be good. This is a relationship. When you have a philanthropic initiative that you partner with and that you invest in and you raise funds for and you work together to find answers, find support, build support, and raise awareness, there is an emotional connection you make with that. There is a real relationship, again, that you build with that organization. There's a feeling of being in this fight together. But then you pass it on to your customers and you get them involved with that. There's magic that happens there. Again, you're not just checking a box. You're part of something bigger than your brand, bigger than your community, and you get to celebrate all the wins together. Crust clearly has celebrated some wins. Carl mentioned, raising $100,000 for St. Jude. That's an incredible win that they get to celebrate with their operators. I've watched as Alex's Lemonade Stand has celebrated a lot of wins, both in the restaurant industry and outside, as they raise funds and support for childhood cancer. There are so many wonderful philanthropic initiatives out there. Of course, No Kid Hungry is another one. CORE is another one. Giving Kitchen. I could go on and on. I say all this because as somebody who has been a parent of a childhood cancer survivor and been a part of that journey and seen how important that support is, I just know how important that work is and how much trust I've built with brands that are active in that fight. I hope that makes sense. And I think what Carl said is important to remember here. The more you give, the more you receive. There's a return on investment here. The return is that you build a relationship, you build trust, you build loyalty with your guests. Of course, you build goodwill. But at the end of the day, it is also financially feasible. There's a real return on investment in terms of sales that people want to give back through businesses that they believe in, that they trust. That shouldn't be why you do it, of course, but there is benefit there. So long-winded way of me saying, just because that's personal to me as well. And I'm so thankful to Carl for sharing his story, and thankful, by the way, that his son is cancer-free now. So we're all very, very happy about that. I'm happy to say my son is as well. Find a charity, find an organization that you can give back to, because I promise you, you will also feel that benefit that we have seen in being a part of those. Those are all my takeaways for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe to Takeaway wherever you listen to podcasts and leave your feedback. You can also email me at sam.oches@informa.com. Thanks again, and talk to you next week.